Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Unplugged with Most Man. This episode is a very special one because for the first time ever, Unplugged with Most Man is not just an audio podcast, it's now a visual podcast as well. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, thank you for joining us. And of course, for our loyal listeners on the audio platforms, don't worry. Unplugged with Mo Ismail will continue to be available wherever you get your podcast. And before we get started, please follow, like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Unplugged with Mo Ismail, one word. And on X at Unplugged Mo. Yeah, X is really like that. The name is too long, so we had to shorten it. Your support, definitely means so much to us, and it means more people will get to see these conversations. So please check us out, all right? Let's go ahead and have this conversation. Today, I want to discuss a very difficult question. A question many of us in Iowa have been asking quietly. Do protests still work in Nigeria? Because I remember a time when they actually did. Personally, the last major protest I was a part of was in 2012 during Occupy Nigeria. Fuel subsidy had been removed, transport fares doubled, food prices were rising, people felt ignored. So they came out. Students came out, traders came out, religious leaders spoke. Civil society mobilized, as they often do. And for a brief moment, all Nigerians spoke with one voice. The protests were so widespread that economic activities were disrupted across major cities, including Kano, Lagos, Abuja, shut down. The movement forced the federal government to partially reverse the subsidy removal policy. But again, a lot of us still remember another side of that same protest, the anger, the violence, public property was destroyed. Now in Kano, where the protests were held and I was an attendee, the state government fence came down, and what began as a peaceful demonstration gradually became something else. But despite its flaws, Occupy Nigeria achieved something tangible. Government retreated, government listened, government negotiated. Now that of course raises a troubling question. Why haven't later protests achieved similar results? Why? What happened? Well, historically, protests succeed when three conditions exist. First, there is a clear demand. Two, there is broad public unity. And three, leaders fear the political cost of ignoring citizens. Occupy Nigeria had all three. The demand was very simple: restore the subsidy. The coalition was broad: labor unions, students, civil society groups, religious leaders, and ordinary citizens. Researchers of that protest, describe it as one of the largest mobilizations in modern Nigeria. Even more interesting, in Kano and other major northern cities, there were reports of unusual cooperation across religious and social divides. Now, what did the government do? Or what did they know? They knew it could not simply pretend that nobody was watching. They could not pretend anymore. The pressure became too expensive politically, and so governments went ahead to negotiate. That is how protests are supposed to work. Now, compare that to many protests after 2012. Especially in this social media era. Before you raise the first placard, the movement is already divided. Now, some people in the movement genuinely want reform. Others want publicity. Others want political relevance. Others want appointments. Others simply want chaos. The movements, what did they become? Divided, fragmented. And when researchers look back at Occupy Nigeria, they found one of the biggest weaknesses was the inability to build a sustained movement after the street protests ended. Fragmentation weakened collective pressure. Everything started clicking. And then, of course, there is the issue of infiltration. Many Nigerians have seen it happen. I have. Someone attends meetings, acts committed, acts passionate, then suddenly information begins to leak. Meeting venues leak, organizers' names leak, the plans leak, the locations leak. Some people disappear. And then when they decide to reappear after the struggle or during the struggle, you find them in government positions. Now, I know it's an allegation, but whether every allegation is true or not, the perception itself destroys trust. People become suspicious of one another, and once trust dies, movements weaken. It's their death that comes. And you think, okay, what about NSAS? Now, NSAS was a movement that was led largely by young Nigerians. They were demanding accountability for police brutality. For a moment, it seemed unstoppable. Nothing could stop it. The protest spread almost the whole country. Government announced dissolution of SARS after the sustained pressure. That was a victory. But then, events turned darker. Violence emerged in several places. Criminal elements infiltrated protests. Public property was destroyed. Security forces responded forcefully. Lives were lost. And then what happened? The national conversation shifted from reform to disorder. And that is the greatest danger of this protest. When violence enters a movement, the original message gets buried 6 feet under. The headlines become about broken buildings rather than broken systems, about burning tires rather than accountability, about unrest rather than reform. This is what it now becomes. The conversation shifts entirely. And right here in Arewa, in the north, we must ask ourselves a very, very difficult question. What exactly are we trying to achieve when we go out to protest? If the goal is good governance, then we need strategies that survive beyond one day of demonstrations. A protest can attract attention, but attention alone is not transformation. Arewa's greatest challenge today is not a lack of anger. We are all suffering. The challenge is converting this public frustration into sustained civic power, because governments do not only respond to protest, they respond to organized pressure, consistent pressure, intelligent pressure, institutional pressure. That's what government responds to. So, of course, I just don't want to yap. I have some alternatives I'd like to suggest. One, we need local accountability movements. Instead of focusing only on Abuja, citizens, all of us, should monitor local government chairmen, state assemblies, and governors. Because most of the services affecting our daily life, day to day, are controlled closer to home, our schools, our public schools, the private healthcare, our roads, the markets, water. Demanding transparency at local levels often produces more measurable outcomes. 2, citizen budget tracking. Most of us, we never read the budget. Yet, budget will reveal the priority of the government. We can track allocation. How much was budgeted? How much was released? How much was completed? Because corruption survives best in darkness. So let's shine a light on it. Electoral organization. We need to have electoral organizations because politicians fear organized voters more than angry tweets or angry posts. A politician may ignore a protest, but he rarely ignores 10,000 registered voters in a constituency. Say Frigita, the real battlefield is not the street. It is the polling unit. Have you obtained your PVC? Do you have your right to vote? Number 4, community media. Northern Nigeria, Arewa, we need more independent media. We need more podcasts like this. We need more investigative journalism, more citizen reporting, because power fears exposure. The official who knows citizens are watching behaves differently. And then finally, number 5, long-term civic coalitions. Because the most effective government movements in history did not disappear after one protest. They built institutions, they trained leaders, they raised funds, they educated citizens, they survived beyond headlines. And that is where many Nigerian movements struggle. That's when we struggle. I'm not saying protests are bad. I still believe protests have a place in democracy. Because without Occupy Nigeria, government might never have reconsidered its subsidy decision. Without NSAS, many abuses might never have received national attention. But one thing I'm certain of is experience, and experience has taught many of us a painful lesson. A protest is not a movement. A crowd is not an institution. A hashtag is not a strategy. An outrage alone is not governance reform. So for Arewa, I think the challenge now is not how to organize the next protest. The challenge should be, how do we organize the next generation of accountable citizens? If starting with us, we can be the next generation of accountable citizens. Citizens who monitor the budget, citizens who ask leaders questions, citizens who vote intelligently. Let's build coalitions, let's protect our institutions, and let us keep demanding transparency long after the protest banners have been folded away. Because governments come and go. But citizenship, that is permanent. It is. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I am interested in hearing your thoughts. So, hey, go ahead, drop a comment, suggest a guest. What else would you like me to yap about, to talk about? Don't forget, of course, to like, share, and subscribe. On Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, we are at Unplugged with Mo Span, and on X at Unplugged Mo. Wherever you're watching or listening from, thank you for joining me on Unplugged with Mo Span. Till next time, stay unplugged.